Welcome to the Humble Togs podcast, where photographers share the journey and not just the highlight reel. This episode started with a moment a lot of photographers know way too well: posting a question and getting absolutely torn apart for it. And for Jessa, who's a member of Humble Togs Club, that one moment stuck with her for years. I think this is something that happens way more than people admit. Photographers that ask for help online and just get bullied, dragged through the hot coals just for asking a question or asking for help. So they stop sharing their work, they quietly pull back. And if it wasn't for Jessa to push through that, she's now 3 years later, and she's sitting on about 18 weddings she's got to process. So if you're struggling in learning photography, it's not because you're not capable, it's just that your environment sucks for how you can get help and where you can go to actually ask for help and get client feedback. Because, we all know a YouTube video isn't going to talk back to you. That's what I'm building in Humble Togs Club. She found me through TikTok. We connected on that whole anti-ego, no-jerks approach to photography. She's only been shooting a few years, but has already started to shoot film on weddings. She's second shooting. She's shooting headshots. She's doing corporate branding and real estate and building real momentum in her business. We talk about the things that just never clicked first, like exposure as a concept, like what is exposure? The histogram, Jessa describes really well here. When any of us are learning, we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes you can learn something, and then if you come back to that same thing 6 months down the track, it can have a whole nother meaning, or you can finally understand what the histogram is, for example, or curves, or some of those other more advanced features in Photoshop. I can explain them to you today. But if you continue with your photography, keep playing with it and come back to that, maybe someday in the not too distant future, hopefully, some of those things will start clicking if you just keep showing up and keep trying to get better every day. So there's a few wedding stories in here about things that didn't go to plan and what that's taught her. This podcast is here for that reason, to show the real journeys, not the polished highlight reels. And if you're here as a humble tog, stick around. This is my conversation with Jessa. So everyone, I wanted to introduce you to Jessa. Jessa was a really early member, weren't you, Jessa? Do you remember how many people were in the club when you joined?
Not many, like maybe 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Really early. Do you remember, were we chatting on TikTok before? What was your memory of when we met?
I was on TikTok and saw a video that you had posted that kind of resonated with me, and I guess I'd really have to think about what it was, but it was just something about photographers acting like they're better than other photographers, sort of like they're just know-it-alls, and just they find a way to make people feel stupid. And
Yeah.
you made fun of that.
Yeah. I'm like, look at me, I'm stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that because when I first, like a lot of people got into photography, I went on to Facebook and went into some of the big photography groups, which very quickly made me feel really inferior and really uncomfortable and unable to ever ask a question or anything because
Yeah.
like the one question I asked one time was just ripped apart to such a way I still remember it to this day, and it's been years now since that even happened. But I had just gotten a new camera, and it has in-body stabilization in it. And when your camera is off, if you hold your camera and you shift it around a little, you can feel that stabilization on a mirrorless camera. It's almost like a
Right.
little soft clunk. And I didn't know what it was, and I had bought a refurbished camera, so I was like freaking out. I thought that my camera was maybe broken. I don't know.
Yeah.
And people, they came at me. They said I was shaking my camera and I was an idiot for that. And they said that I like didn't read the manual and just all this stuff that just made me feel like a moron, And I don't know. It was a big purchase, and it was really hard for me to come up with that at the time. And yeah, I felt really bad and never asked a question again.
I want to say, like, with
Yeah.
reading the manual is a pretty common one, and it's so funny. I don't think, I mean, when I first got a camera, maybe I'd had to flick through the manual, but like, unless you're looking for like a particular thing, and maybe that particular thing, like it would have explained it in the manual, but who reads manuals?
Well, here's the funny thing is, so my camera was a refurb. It came directly from Canon, but it didn't have the original box. It had some weird refurb box. It did have what I thought was a manual in it. And I did read that. And then I called Canon directly and I was like, I don't know what this is and what's going on with my camera. And the guy was so nice. And he's like, first of all, I just want you to know we do not include manuals anymore with
Yeah.
the cameras. So if you want to read the manual, you have to go to the PDF version on Canon's website to read it.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything wrong. And that made me feel a lot better, to say the least.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. A lot of people really get into the tech side of photography, and there've been some people like Matt is probably our most techie kind of guy. He talks a little bit about the tech,
Yeah.
but I certainly am loud and proud out there saying that I don't really care about the tech. I can get into it, and we can talk about different things with the tech, but it's not what we should be focused on. And anyone, when you're asking for help and is coming to you with like talking about the tech, we can automatically pretty much put them in the basket of people who we don't want to come and join Humble Togs Club, just because
Right.
that world is just like, you can talk about that till the cows come home. Most of the time, that world is toxic, and people are like, well, mine's better than yours, and oh, how long's your lens, and all that bull crap. That's funny.
Yeah. And I find that in my experience, it's taken me like a progression to get to where I'm at today. So I was
Mm,
able to absorb certain information in the beginning. And then as my skills developed, I was able to take information that I know I had heard, but I didn't understand it at the time. So now I can absorb that information, right? So over
mm,
time, different things started to mean more to me. There was a point where I like finally understood the histogram. When
mm.
I first got my camera, I didn't want that thing showing up on the back of my camera. I was like, "Ah, I don't need all
Yeah,
that. What is that? It's freaking me out." And
yeah.
it took me maybe, I don't know, well over a year into my journey to where at one point I learned more about the histogram, and I was like, "This is like the best thing ever." I use it all the time now, like
Once you understand it,
especially in
yeah.
wedding. Yeah, now that
Right,
I
yeah,
get it,
yeah.
but I wasn't ready for that, and I don't think that made me a bad photographer. I was in that place in my journey of education, of learning, and now it's definitely a right hand. If I notice it's off, I'm like, oh my gosh, why is my histogram off? Now I need it
Yeah.
back on. So, and there's other things like that.
It's a good reminder for people like me too that are trying to teach photography and help people learn, is that sometimes we forget what everyone doesn't know, and
Hmm.
simple things like the word exposure. I remember when I was learning photography, the word exposure has this kind of, it gets thrown around, and people don't really understand what you mean by that. Number one, it has a couple of meanings. So you can make an exposure, which is just creating the photo. That's called making an exposure. And then there's the exposure, which is the combination of three different settings: the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed. But when people say underexposed, overexposed, all of these kind of terms, unless you have been around and understand all those terms, it can really throw you. And if you're out there
Yeah.
going, what do the people mean by they're saying exposure? Like, I don't know. Are you talking about a setting? And the
Hmm.
answer really is that exposure just means the overall brightness and darkness of the image, which is created by choosing those three numbers: the ISO, the shutter speed, and aperture. When people put up a photo online and go, what do people think about this? People go, oh, it's overexposed. And it's like, well, is it? Maybe the photographer meant to have it to be a high key image, which is another term that just means that the tones of the image are very bright. In bridal stuff, a lot we do high key images where there's sun flares coming in, and
Yes.
sure, some people would say, oh, it's overexposed, but it's like, well, yes, yes. Yes, I overexposed it based on what the light meter would say, but that's called overexposing. There's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, I think there's lots to be said for understanding that idea of what exposure is. And certainly you see that a lot when people are commenting crappy things of like, you don't know what you're doing, learn the exposure triangle. It's like, shut up.
Well, it took time for me to absorb what the exposure triangle meant. I remember very clearly, I actually visualized it in my mind as a triangle that turned, and it always kind of had to be even.
Mm,
I don't know why I saw it that way. I'm very visual mentally, but I felt like if my ISO was a certain number, then other numbers had to be the same, like, how do I even phrase it? Like just the same at the same point each time. So if the ISO went up,
right.
then so did this one and so did that. So it's always staying the same, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
I learned later on that no, the triangle in my mind could be like a really long side over here and a small short side here. I mean, it's still a triangle.
Yeah.
So that would mean, like, as an example, really increasing my shutter speed, right? Sometimes I need to do that. And you probably do too, being back in
Yep.
Australia. It's so sunny, right? And if
Yeah.
I'm doing a wedding and like we've had a few daytime weddings recently where, I mean, it's just blue sky, is so sunny. It's very, very harsh. My partner, she and I like to shoot wide open primarily for the type of shots that we want for these
Yeah.
clients. And so that means that I have to have a very low ISO because it's so sunny and a
Yeah.
very fast shutter speed. I mean,
Yeah.
1/5000th of a second at times because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
So the triangle isn't always this set perfect triangle. It might be, a really long side on one side. So I don't know if that makes sense
Obtuse.
to people, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, an
yeah, yeah, yeah,
obtuse triangle. Right, right, right.
yeah.
And so that's just kind of how I had to realize like it wasn't such a thing that like you were saying something is either underexposed or overexposed, like, and it's just that. Like there's a lot of creative input into the choices that you're making in photography, and people can both get great images and have very different setting.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't mean there's a right and then a wrong. They're both right, you know?
Yeah. Are you aware too of the double factor? So again, this is very confusing when people are learning. When you step down the stops, and it's called stops, which is like one
Hmm.
stop, extra exposure, one stop. So
Yes.
every stop in ISO, aperture is kind of like the outlier. They measure it differently. But ISO and shutter, when you step a stop in a direction, the number either halves or doubles. You know
Right.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 250th of a second, the next stop, the next click on your camera is like 1/500th of a second, and then 1,000th,
Yes.
and then 2,000th, and 4,000th, that kind
Right.
of thing. So that can confuse people too. They're like, oh my gosh, what are all these numbers? And then they'll often, sometimes with the higher shutter speeds, it's really confusing because if you're talking about 1/2000th of a second, people get that number, the 2,000, confused with the ISO, which is commonly in the thousands as well. So those two numbers can be confusing. The aperture at least has its own little metric of being one number with a point and another number, but that can also be confusing too. Let's go wind it back and take us through, where have you been on your photography journey? How did you get into it? I know you do a bunch of other stuff as well, but
Yeah.
what's life up to now?
My photography journey has really grown, I would say. I've been shooting now probably for like 3 years.
Hmm.
When I think about it, time's like really going by for me.
And you're doing
And
amazingly for
if
3 years.
Yeah, thank
Amazingly.
you. It's really increased, and meaning I'm getting a lot more gigs now. So I
Hmm.
do wedding primarily as a second shooter
Hmm.
primarily, and
Hmm.
then I've been getting some real estate, which I really enjoy doing. That's nice because there's no people, no one to criticize anything, and
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to me, and headshots. So I also
Hmm.
really like those. Most of the ones I've been doing are corporate. I just need to give them 3 images per person, and it's great.
On that gig that you were talking about, lighting the headshots, and you wanted to give them a lot of shading and a bit of drama
Oh,
and not make them look so
yeah.
commercial,
Mhm.
I was impressed at that, having really thinking about the style and shaping your light. A lot of photographers, when they're
Yeah.
starting, certainly in the first couple of years, just try and get some light on the people, and then that's it. But
Yeah.
you had a very good understanding of what you were trying to achieve. Tell us about
Yeah.
that.
That's funny that because I haven't really thought about that, but that was my first time doing headshots. The gig was for this nonprofit that has people that go through a training for how to give talks, like a TED Talk kind of thing. And each person would talk about something that really was like influential or very difficult or something that they went through that helped them grow, and they want to share a message to the audience because ultimately they would be sitting in front of an audience giving the talk that they were trained to give over a 3-month period or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I was aware of what a lot of people were talking about. So I wanted to try to capture each person in their essence more so than maybe like a corporate or real estate agent kind of headshot. And
Mm.
so I was really thinking about that. And the images that I produced, I felt were really reflective of each person. And I got a lot of positive feedback on that.
Mm.
What I did technically was I actually only used one umbrella light and had it positioned in a way that would just illuminate the individual's left side of their face primarily. And then I would have them turn their head and do different things, but I really wanted to work with shadows as well because I felt like by not having everything so perfect and so airbrushed or photoshopped or whatever
And lit up.
could
Yeah.
really, yeah, it could actually kind of show a side of people that maybe they've never been photographed. I don't know why
Mm.
I was driven to do that. I mean, I guess I just told you why, but I mean, no one asked me to do that.
Sure, it's the creative process and the creativeness that you had
Yeah,
given the
yeah,
circumstances of that gig, right? And again, if you'd
right,
gone and put those photos up on a like a headshot group or some group saying, "Hey guys, give me some constructive criticism," guaranteed you would have had people going, "Oh, it's too dark. You don't know how to use a reflector," or whatever. It's like,
right,
duh,
right.
that wasn't your intention.
Yeah. I have reflectors, I have more than one light, I could have done a lot of things. I really was very curious about what the opportunity was, and so as each person came to me, because I only had so much time in the day to get it done, I asked each person, "What is your talk about?" I wanted to kinda get a feeling for, like, what it
Mm,
was because some people were talking about SA that they went through when they were
mm.
young. Some people were talking about their cancer battle, different things like that.
Heavy stuff.
Having this perfectly polished headshot, I didn't feel aligned with the purpose of why they were there. So,
That's really smart, honestly. Like a lot of
thank you.
photographers, probably me included, honestly, I would have probably rocked up and done that in a pretty commercial headshot way, thinking, oh, great, these people use it for their like website or whatever and be maybe not so smiley, but still serious, but well lit up and commercially lit. And I think you were going for a much more of an artistic lighting style, which is really out of the box and I think excellent in that space. So I
Thank
learned
you.
from you in that gig, which you're telling me it's your first headshot gig ever. And here am I going, I'm learning from you. So all part of the vibe here.
That's funny. Yeah.
So carry on. What has your last year or so been like for your headshots?
So with regard to the headshots, now I have kind of morphed to a more commercialized style just because, yes, the majority of people want a headshot that's going to go on their LinkedIn. They do want that corporate polished look. And honestly, with where I'm at with my skills, that for me is very easy to produce.
Yeah.
I can be with somebody for 15 minutes. I know I have the shot and they can go on their way. I really like that because it's something that I can fill in during my week. Sometimes I might have one or two. I'd love to have like 10 or 40. That'd be great. But right
Mm,
now, with where I'm at, I might get one or two. And that really adds to the bottom line for me with all the other things that I do. And
mhm.
then the main thing that I'm doing now is second shooting as a wedding photographer. It has been absolutely incredible. My partner that I'm working with, she's just like such a gift to me. She's
Yeah.
made me such an even better photographer. Like, she's so kind because she says I've made her and her business a better business. But like, I feel that the exchange that we have between the two of us, it just works so well. And I just have grown so much. I have so many weddings to edit. I have like 16 weddings or something. It's a lot. And
To
I really
edit?
want to get going. Yes. I need to get them.
What are you doing here on the podcast with me? Oh my
And
gosh.
no, no, no,
No,
no.
James
I'm the
explaining.
second shooter. I don't have to give it to the client, but I
Yeah.
want to get those posted on my Instagram and just
Yeah.
kind of keep going with that. But, life gets in the way because during the week I'm a professional organizer. So like
Yeah.
your wife as well. So
Which is my
I
wife. Yeah, my
do.
wife does the same job.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
quickly for the people, because in Australia, I'd never heard of that job. Just quickly
Mhm.
explain to people what the job of a professional organizer is.
Yeah, so I primarily go into people's homes and then assess their situation and help them get organized. That can encompass anything from their kitchen, their pantry, their closet, whatever it is, bathrooms. A lot of people have a lot of products and items and clothes and it keeps piling on and they don't really
Clutter, I think that's called. Yeah.
clutter. They have clutter, they have just a lot of stuff that they need help. They don't know how to build out a system that's
Mm,
sustainable so that they can maintain living in a more structured life. So where, if you go grocery shopping, these items have a place and you actually know what you
mm.
have in your pantry versus you just keep buying and buying. All the time I'll do a pantry for someone and then their kids will come home and they'll say to their parents, "We didn't even know we had any food in here." And it's like, "Yeah, we had tons of food. We keep telling you." It's like, well, now they can see it.
Yeah, I think
So,
especially for kids, that's a great thing. Yeah, that's a
right,
great,
right.
great side hustle for you to have. Do you imagine where's your goal for the next 5 years or 10 years? Do you want to be getting rid of that kind of work and just be doing photography full time, or what do you?
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
I like the organizing, but it's my primary source of income, and I would rather transition into the photography as my primary source
Mhm.
and then maybe do less organizing jobs or maybe come in more as a consultant because I'm able to assess a space and I know what products are needed to organize, right? I'll know
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. I could work with other business owners in that capacity, but the amount of time that I spend doing that, I would rather be spending doing my own edits and actually making a meaningful income through my photography, which I know I can do. I just need more time right now. And
Mhm.
so I'm trying to shift my life more in that direction, but I won't be able to get anywhere unless I start advertising myself more. Usually when I do post, people are very complimentary. They like what they see and just not getting in front of people enough. And so business wise, that's a huge goal of mine is to try to pivot, start posting more and start getting my own clients to where the lady that I partner with, maybe she would second shoot with me. And then potentially the two of us could have our weekends much more full. She already has tons of clients, but maybe the ones where she doesn't have a wedding, maybe I do. It'll be more abundant for both of us. That's a goal. I really want us to be able to share that and have a lot more abundance between
Yeah.
she and I.
Great. I think definitely the track you're on of second shooting is excellent. That's an excellent, excellent way to get into weddings. You'll just learn so much and do it in a
Yeah.
fairly stress-free or pressure-free way. Being a second, to anyone who doesn't know, what we're talking about is on a wedding, the person you work with has their business and they're the wedding photographer and you're helping them shoot on the day is what we mean by a second. You come out with
Right.
secondary shots of the same moments and holding gear and organizing the day. And it's a great way if you're out there wanting to get into wedding photography. I couldn't recommend highly enough. Don't try and get your own gigs. Go and try and find another photographer you can second for and build up that relationship, that feeling of confidence without the pressure of a wedding. Because you're the second, it's much less pressure, and the pressure is always on that lead photographer. And when you can find someone, like you said, Jessa, that you have a good relationship with, yeah, it's a great symbiont relationship. I had people that worked for me at the studio for years, and I trust them implicitly. Like we would almost not be a first and a second; we would be like equals on the shoot.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, Kurt, because to me, like, while I agree maybe the pressure isn't there in the same capacity that it is for the primary photographer, I take what I do so seriously that, like, every choice that I make, every single thing that happens during the day, I carry that responsibility to such a degree as if they were my own clients. And I think that that's also why we have such a good working relationship because she knows that no matter what, I will do my best and I will give it my all and I will stay until the end. I will make sure everything is captured to the best of my ability because I really care about that stuff. And my name is on it, even though it's her name is on it. To me, that is a reflection of my work, and I care about it so much that I don't want anything to reflect negatively on me. Like I see cute TikToks of people like at the end of the day they're done second shooting, they're like bye bye, I laugh about that, but like, no, I go home and I think, oh my gosh, why didn't I get that one shot? Or why didn't I think of that? Or like, oh, I just wasn't my best today, or my pictures were horrible, or whatever, and that's me getting in my own way. But while that is maybe not the best or healthiest, at the same time, it does make me be better. It makes me give so much. And I love it. I love second shooting for her. I don't want to work with anyone else. Like, I'm just like,
Great.
it's like a
Yeah.
great relationship. So I definitely
Yeah.
recommend you finding that if you're thinking about doing wedding, is to try to have someone give you a chance to second shoot to where hopefully you'll be able to work with them more often and expand on your abilities.
If there's photographers out there who have a business and are looking for seconds, it's that they look for.
Yeah.
Speaking from experience, like I've hired people, like sometimes a friend would say, "Oh, my daughter wants to get into photography. Can she come and shoot with you or whatever?" And I have had seconds be that type of person for me. It's a funny story, but there was a friend of mine's wedding that I was shooting. This was years and years ago, one of my early weddings, and I had this second that was like a friend's kid, and they had a camera, so they were coming along. And in the ceremony, the kid who was supposed to be seconding with me had sat down, and I couldn't see them. and again, this is all me learning the hard way too. My memory card, this is back in like, probably early 2000s. So even the memory cards could only take like 300, 400 photos on each memory card. They weren't the size they are now. So my memory card was getting towards full in the middle of the ceremony. And again, like I learned all these lessons now. I wasn't carrying extra cards on me. The second had them because I said, you carry the gear and put all this in your pockets or your bum bag or whatever it was. So in the middle of the ceremony, and again, because this was my friend and we had a great relationship with the bride herself, in the middle of the ceremony, they were coming up to the kiss, and I've got like 10 more photos or something, and I can't approach the kiss with 10 photos left. So I said, I'm sorry, Kate, can you just give me a second? And I just yelled this kid's name out. I said, Jackson, like that. And this kid just like got up and was like, yeah. I was like, get over here. And everyone laughed about it. I switched cards. I said, I'm good now. Carry on. And the rest of the wedding, throughout the rest of the day, people randomly would just, in the middle of something, just call out, Jackson! Like at a funny moment or at the end of the speeches. It just became this catch cry for the day. So a couple of things to take away there. Number one, know that you've got extra memory cards on you, and also that when you, I mean, I think these days you don't have to change your memory cards very often, so you can know that at the start of a ceremony, you've got a fresh card, or you got a long range to go. You're not going to run out of memory in the middle of a wedding like that. Number two is always don't trust your second to have that stuff. Always have it on yourself. And then number three is that if something goes wrong, and sure, those people were my friends, but I would do the same for a client that I'd gotten to know, and I think the reaction would be the same. It's in your best interest to stop something, or don't be scared of like, oh my gosh, not say something if that's about to happen. It's better for the long run to solve that problem, make a funny moment. It'll be fine. Don't stress about, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. There might be people coming at me, saying, you shouldn't say that. You got to respect the wedding. And like, I'm pretty chilled out with weddings. I think most people, my clients, the people that come to me because I'm chilled out and they want a relaxed experience. And part of that being relaxed means you can stop the wedding to call out for your second.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that finding people that are willing to take second shooters can be tough. There's different ways that I've found people do it. The way that I met the lady that I work with was kind of a unique situation. And usually things like that happen in that way. If something's
Mm.
organic, it usually ends up being better than really pushing and trying to make things happen. But I do know there is an online resource, and it is like a second shooter place where primary photographers can go and see some of the portfolio from second shooters, and they can find out what type of camera they're shooting with, because that matters to a lot of people. I have found that a lot of Nikon users don't like working with Canon and vice versa, just because the colors, and it just is more work. So sometimes it's
I've
easier.
always, just to interject, I've always had a mix. Like I always shoot
Yeah.
Nikon. The girls that used to work with me always, just by coincidence, or maybe it's a feminine thing, the girl photographers always had Canon that I always used to work with. So I never saw a big difference there.
But
And I
you're
think, yeah,
relaxed like that. Like you were just
yeah,
saying, like you're a little more relaxed. There's things you've said along the way to me that, like not everyone is the way that you are. So I'm just saying
yeah,
that like this group exists and you put that information in there, and
great. Yeah.
then that does help pair people up who are looking for certain types of people. One thing you said to me one time when I was shooting on that big stage, there was the one lady where the light people messed up her lighting, and
Mhm.
everyone had this beautiful lighting, and then when they got to that lady who was speaking, that her lighting was all yellow, and she didn't have any of the other colors, and no white, no nothing. And I was freaking out because I was like, I don't know how I'm going to edit this, because this is a while ago now. But you were like, it's just light, like it's like you're just gonna adjust the temperature, you're gonna it's gonna work out. You were right. So like, but when I was shooting it the whole time, I thought, oh my God, like this is a disaster, like how am I gonna fix this? And you were just so, it's okay. And
Yeah, it's fine.
I honestly, I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for people like you, for the lady that I second shoot with. I have another mentor at our local camera store. He's an older guy, been shooting forever, knows everything. I've done a couple of private one-on-one lessons with him. He does those on his day off, and he's just is this wealth of knowledge that I feel like a lot of younger people don't necessarily give credit to. As people get older, they kind of feel maybe like, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. He does. He literally knows everything. Anything I've ever asked
Mm.
him, he knows everything about it, like almost too much. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to get into 35 millimeter film now. That's where
Oh,
I've to
yeah,
the
that's
point
right.
where I've grown, right? Like
Yeah, tell us about that.
yeah, I told his name's Guy. So I said, Guy, I want to do this, but like I want to learn it to where I can be almost like an expert. I'm not
Mm.
going to be, because I'm younger and I'm 43,
You
but
will
do you know
be.
what I mean? Like I'm not like him. I mean, he started with 35 millimeter. That's what I'm talking
Sure.
about. So
Yeah.
he's just taught me so much. So he came over and I got a really nice film camera on eBay that I was looking for, a very specific film camera. I got the Canon 1V, which is a professional film camera, and it is the last 35 millimeter professional camera that Canon ever made. And it
Mm.
is like a tank, and it looks like a modern camera really, which is kind of nice because I wanted a camera that was not obviously film when I would be out in the field shooting a wedding. I don't want it to be a distraction. I want it
Mm.
to blend in with the rest of what I'm doing because honestly don't have time to talk about film. And I already get people asking me like, what kind of camera are you shooting there? Like,
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
that lens on there? I don't have time
Yeah.
for that. So that's why one reason why I wanted this camera. But we had a long lesson of like 4 hours and we never even shot a darn picture. There's so much to learn. One thing I didn't know is on a modern camera, like a DSLR or on a mirrorless camera, you expose for the highlights. That I know. You're
Mhm.
definitely making sure you're not blowing out your whites, if I put it that way.
Mhm.
People know that, right? So yeah, that's why I love to use the histogram because at shooting wedding, I'm always looking at this histogram, making sure I am not blowing out my whites, which is very easy to do out here in Arizona.
And the dress, it's the dress, right? The dress and the
It's the
flowers,
dress.
things like
It's
that.
the
Yeah.
dress that's the problem. And so when you're shooting 35 millimeter, what I've learned from my mentor is you actually expose for the shadows. And you need to make sure that you are not underexposing your image so much because from what I'm understanding, and anybody else that knows more about this than me, please, it's fine. I literally am learning. But that's a lot harder to bring up because the ISO is a set thing on your camera and your film. So when you buy film, it will say the ISO, and that is what it is. So people will have a tendency to maybe use too fast of a shutter speed, and then your image might be too dark. And you need to make sure you're exposing for the shadows. And he has a like a light meter thing he wants me to start using. Those things are so expensive. It's like $800. I'm like, I
Mhm.
don't want to buy that right now. I don't have the time or the money. But there's so much to it, and I want to learn it the right way. And of course, I've watched tons of YouTube videos, and sure enough, still when he comes over, he tells me things. I'm like, how do you even remember all this stuff? Like, I know what you're talking about right now. Like, it's
Yeah.
too much. I did shoot a wedding and brought a vintage Canon AE1 and did the roll at the wedding. And but basically, the way I was doing it was all of the like hero shots I also shot on film. So anything that I really, really loved, I wanted to make sure I also got a shot of that on film. Film
And
is
just one
expensive
shot?
and just
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
One
that's all
shot.
I did for
Yeah.
that. Because it was more of like an experiment for me, see how it
Mhm.
went. Maybe it was all going to be trash, I don't know, but
Sure. Yeah.
they actually turned out really great. For
Yeah.
the most part, I was pretty happy with them. And so I think what I'm probably going to do once I'm done with learning 35 millimeter through the lessons I'm having with Guy, I will probably take the 2 or 3 rolls and start adding that in at weddings. Again, it won't be obvious because the camera looks like a regular camera and see
Mm.
how it goes. And if my partner and I are happy with that, then we might start offering that as an add on to the wedding clients. Yeah.
Great.
But
Yeah.
initially, we'll give it probably as a gift.
Great. That's great. The thing I would say about film too is all of us are used to this idea of shooting digitally and then essentially it's called Lightroom because, we're doing things in the dark room on our computer, on our light box room, so
Right.
so
Right.
we do all that stuff now. Almost the beauty of film is that you don't do that as a photographer unless you're printing at home. You shoot the photos and then you take them to the lab and they do all that work and you just
Yeah.
get the photos. It's a real different way of thinking about photography. The look and the style of the color and all that stuff is kind of dialed in partly by the film and partly by the techs that print the photos, and they're very good at what they do. So you're kind of also outsourcing that stuff and it looks beautiful and you don't have to worry about it. So again, if anyone's out there thinking about doing what you're doing, it's a great thing to do just to break that part of your brain down and go, back in the olden days, this is how photography used to work. We weren't tasked with having to do all the processing or the Lightroom stuff
Right.
or the retouching. That was what the film lab did. And that's a real different way of thinking about being a photographer that a lot of people would, maybe not even be aware of.
Absolutely. And there are people that are shooting a lot of 35 millimeter now. And so they're doing their own film scans at home. And possibly I would get to that point if I am starting to charge for it as an add on for weddings. But right now, I'm very blessed because I have the largest camera store in the Southwest. It's like an equivalent to B&H, and it's wonderful, and they do all your scanning and printing there, which is really nice. But you have to buy your film rolls and then you have to pay to have them scanned, and then if you're going to have them printed. So when you asked me just one roll of film, yeah, because I was doing that as like an experiment. I don't
Mm.
know. That was my first time doing it. Were they all going to turn out black? I don't know. Now that's not to say I never shot 35 millimeter. Okay, I am old enough. I mean, I used to shoot on disposable Kodaks, right, and
Yeah,
do a
yeah,
roll
yeah.
back in the 90s, and then throw the,
Yeah.
you never saw that camera again. But actually doing it like this manually, and that's another thing about me is I shoot manually. I don't use any of the preset programs. I don't use aperture priority or shutter priority on my camera. So I am all manual and shooting film. That's also how I was shooting it.
Yep.
Plan to continue doing it that way as well. And so
Yep.
there's a learning curve with that and an investment. The cameras aren't cheap. A lot of people want to shoot film and they're trying to buy older cameras, and these cameras can go for a lot depending on which ones you get. Right. And
Yeah.
I wanted a reliable one because I want to be able to add this in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Tell me one crazy story about your photography career. What have you got that really surprised you or?
It's funny. My mind goes to the worst thing that's happened to me so
Great.
far. And I
Let's do
shouldn't
it.
even say happened to me, but I was shooting my own wedding. I've had a few weddings.
Not your wedding, a
No,
wedding.
I've done 3 weddings
Yeah.
as the primary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
So this one wedding, most of the people are getting married are young. They're young and they don't know everything. No one knows everything, but when you're young, you don't. And a lot of the guys, this is their first time wearing tuxedos, right? They've
Yep.
never worn
Yep.
them. They ordered the one they were supposed to get, and then they don't touch it, and they bring it to the wedding. Shirts aren't ironed. Nothing's
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm the kind of person where I want to be helpful, which I don't anymore, by the way. I'm not helping anybody anymore. I'm going to live and let live. But when guys get jackets, the back of the jackets they have what's called stay stitches. It's these little X's on the back, and it holds the flat back in the back. So for
Yeah.
shipping, it's meant for shipping so that your jacket
Yeah.
doesn't get crumpled. You're supposed to cut that off, and then your jacket will move. If you don't remove that, your jacket will hug around your backside and give you a really weird shape, especially for photos, which I don't want, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to look like they've got a full load on with in these
In
photos,
the
right?
jump
So
area. Yeah. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like 3 of these groomsmen in a row, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I tell the first guy, I'm like, hey, these stitches are supposed to come off your jacket. And he's like, oh, really? And I was like, I can take them off for you. And he's like, okay, great, thanks. Literally, you can just rip it apart. Pops off, right? 1, 2, good. And the guy next to him, he looks, and I'm like, yep, you have it too. 1, 2. I took it off. Third guy, I was like, you have it too. And I ripped his off. This guy turned around at me and was like, it was bad. Now, the crazy thing is, I did not know that I had my meta glasses recording, okay? Because I was recording behind the scenes.
Yeah.
This guy turns to me and he was like, what the F are you doing? How dare you touch me and micromanage my outfit? Like, he really went off.
Was it the groom or?
No, it was
No.
the best man. I mean, he came at me so hard, and everyone just stood there and looked. No one said anything. I was so humiliated, so embarrassed. I literally, at the end of the night, when I went back to my room, I was crying. Like, I was just so torn up because I was humiliated too. I just felt so bad. I was literally trying to help. I wanted the best man, everyone to look their best in their photos, and it got turned around on me in such a way. But throughout the evening, everyone that witnessed this kept coming up to me and apologizing for his remarks or his behavior, saying, like, he's just a really tough guy to be around. He's always been like this. He's a jerk. He's this or that. Even the groom was like, he's just like that, But I learned from that experience as well. I don't need to teach everyone. I don't need to share my knowledge all the time. I don't have to be a teacher, an educator constantly. I do need to let people sometimes just live and let live. It's their lives. They need to learn and they need to make their own mistakes. And I'm not their big sister. I don't need to tell everybody everything all the time. But I mean, every wedding, Kurt, it never fails. Father of the bride, recently he comes out, he still has labels on his tuxedo. He's about to do the first look with his daughter, and I'm like, I told him, but I mean, like, now, I don't know. It was such an experience that it really made me take a step back and kind of think, I don't like what you say about, well, maybe somebody wanted their photo overexposed. Maybe he wanted those on his jacket. I don't know. It was actually none of my business and it was a mistake and I regret it. I really do because I want to give the clients the perfect photos. It's not all on me. It is also on the guest showing up in the right way. Why do I have to figure everything out for everyone? I don't know. What is your take on that?
I would hope for you that you can shrug that guy's stuff off. I am a big believer in the let them theory. I'm like, if you want to be a jackass, I'm just going to let you. Your reaction to me is not anything to do with me, actually.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all your stuff. So I would hope that you cannot go into the next wedding where you're looking at those threads going, I should fix that. But because of that guy's attitude, I'm not going to let this groom do the same thing to me. But my thought there is, well, these guys are all their own people, and maybe you doing that is a really beautiful thing and a help for them that they'll really appreciate. So I would go up against that thought for you of saying, oh, well, I'm just going to let people do it. I would say, let that guy be a jackass. He was having a bad day, whatever. That's nothing to do with you. It shouldn't deny the next person, the next group of groomsmen that got threads and tags on their suits for you to go, maybe it's not you going up and doing it. Maybe you just say to the groom, hey, I've noticed the guys all have those threads. Do you want to sort that out for them? Because what they are is this X, Y, and Z. And maybe not be the person that goes and touches it to do it, because that's not your job. Maybe that way of doing it, but I wouldn't not say anything to people.
But the thing, too, is the timing. It was go time. We were about to go down the aisle at that moment. There wasn't like a, hey, going to the groom and asking who has scissors or none of that. It was like, this is happening now, and everyone is going to see the back of these guys as they go down, and it's going to be in photos forever. I took initiative, and you are right. Like, I need to, funny thing that you mentioned too is like maybe he was having a bad day. From everything I heard, he actually just went through the worst breakup of his life. He was super heartbroken. He had been back in his room crying and going through all this stuff. So he was having a bad day, and maybe he did take it out on me, because he was like a different person, like 30 minutes later, totally fine with me, but I wasn't fine. It really hurt me. And the groom's mother is who retained me for the wedding. She couldn't believe that he did that because she knows me personally. But things like that, you're right. It's taking me time to kind of process that and find a place in the middle to where I feel safe and comfortable, because it is scary doing weddings too. There's so much at stake as a photographer. These photos, this is the one thing that's going to live on, and things can go wrong. And like I carry insurance, because if someone were to sue me for something, it's really, really serious. And people really dog on photographers and make fun of them and try to talk down on each other and all this crazy stuff like that. I take my work so seriously, and I want to protect myself. I want to make sure I'm taking these steps to do that, because it's not all fun and games. Not everyone's a relaxed photographer like you. And that's another reason why I don't really feel like working with anyone else right now, because I feel like I have a great relationship with someone, and it's a good, healthy working relationship. And, but it's not like that all the time with everyone. You could have easily, that second shooter that you worked with could have done something that could have really affected the day,
Yeah, and I've got stories like that too. I told one just in the episode previously, but I won't go through that again. But yeah, there's definitely been times where we've had pretty big stuff ups. And again, I want to, on this podcast, talk about those stuff ups. I want people to be able to listen and have an antidote to that Instagram feed where all you see is people's highlight reels and the people are looking at other photographers going, well, look how good they are. I want to, be upfront and hopefully the people that are listening are taking away from this. Look, I've never paid a lot of attention to that tag thing. Hopefully there's a lot of photographers that are listening to this and go, hey, that's a really great thing I've learned on the podcast today from Jessa. Certainly your sensibility and your attention to detail is something that, you've taught me that today too. So I think that's the second thing you've taught me today. Is that right?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, it was so nice to talk to you, Jessa. We'll wrap up there. And how can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at glowwithjessa. And
spell that out for us.
GLOW_with_Jessa, JESSA. Also, if you go to Kurt's profile, he follows me, so probably be easy to find me then.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being one of our earliest members, Jessa. I've looked forward to recording this. I know you're super busy, so thank you for your time as well. And see you out in the club.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, Kurt. I really appreciate it.
If you're out there in Arizona, definitely go and find Jessa. Jessa is such a rock star in the community. I love having her in there. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a photographer that you know would love it as well. Please leave a review. That really helps us get started. I look forward to getting all up in your ears on the next episode. Stay humble out there, Togs, and keep chasing awesome.